Jason,
Hey,
welcome to the podcast, my friend.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you on. Glad we could wrangle you while you're here at the Pro Conference.
Absolutely.
Nice to have you. So you've been in ShopFix for how long?
About just over 5 years now.
And where are you out of?
Athens, Georgia.
Athens, Georgia. And tell me, how did you get into owning a shop?
Okay. I was in aviation for about 14 years. I was an aviation technician by trade. And
Working on what, an aviation technician? What were you doing?
all right, so I was active duty Air Force for 9 years. I worked
Okay.
on fighter aircraft, F-15s, F-22s, and then started up the F-35
Slow
program.
planes.
Yeah, the little ones, the boring ones.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. And then I was at 9.5 years. So I was right at that decision point where if I enlisted one more time, I might as well go, I'd be over the hump. I might as well do 20.
Yeah.
And so I was at that position and I decided, no, I'm going to go see what else is out there. So finished my enlistment and then moved over to, as a civilian, still aviation technician, to a different company. And then I was working for the Air Force. So then the Air Force became the customer, different airframe.
Yeah.
And then I was part of AFSOC, so kind of tip of the spear, support for the guys on the troops on the ground. And then took me around the world 5 times, 4 years. And I remember I was sitting in Western Africa in Niger, and I was texting with my dad, and he owned a small used car dealership in Athens at the time. And he goes, well, hey, I know this guy down the road and he might want to sell his shop or whatever. And I remember this. And I remember I texted him. I said, okay, well, when I get home from this trip, that's it. I'm coming home and I quit. And he's like, whoa. Like nothing's in stone. You know, we don't want you to give up your good job. But I was watching, I was probably 30 at the time, and I was watching 55, 60-year-old guys trying to keep up with me and 130 degrees outside. And I said, okay, I don't want to be that.
You saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah. So I'm like, let me get the hard stuff out of the way young. And then came home, took 2 weeks off, drove to Athens, Georgia, went house hunting the whole time, found a house, put it under contract, drove back to Florida, worked for about 2 weeks, put my 2 weeks in, and then just up and moved to Georgia.
And did you know anything about that shop when you moved, or was it still kind of in the works?
I didn't know anything about cars. I still don't. I think I've changed oil maybe 4 times.
How many tires do they have?
Yeah, right. I think I've changed oil maybe 4 times in my life.
Wow.
On cars, 4 or 5, yeah.
What was your specialty on planes?
So in the Air Force, it's very compartmentalized. So I was an airframe guy.
Yep.
And, I'd help out the engine guys and the other guys, but I was airframe, hydraulics, landing gear, stuff like that. And then as soon as I became a civilian, I get that little green AMP card and they go, oh, here, you can do anything. And so that was a little intimidating. But so I was airframe, and then as a civilian working for the Air Force, a military contractor, anything the aircraft needed, I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's awesome. So your dad, I guess, got the deal worked out before you went there.
No.
Oh,
Not at all.
tell us about that.
So looking back on it, it's kind of insane that I did that, but that was a huge leap of faith that I didn't even recognize was a leap of faith at the time. But I knew I always had the entrepreneurial spirit, and I knew I wanted to do something else, something that I can control. So I moved to Athens with the intent of buying into my dad's used car dealership, which I did. And then I met the guy that owned the shop, and it was hot and heavy on that. And then it kind of just didn't happen for a year, the shop. He was actually a full-time airline pilot and was was on like a medical leave, started a shop that he used to run years ago with his dad. And he's like, well, that's the second thing he knows how to do. He knows how to fly airplanes and fix cars. And so he started a shop while he was on medical leave. And then, so it almost didn't happen. And then I really thought, oh, what did I just do? I just gave up a very good job, especially being, young 30s. And about a year went by, I realized I absolutely hate selling cars. I want nothing to do with the car dealership industry. And then the shop did happen. And so I knew I could sink my teeth into that. The plan was I'd run the shop, my dad would run the dealership. And then once I started learning, anything really, I realized very quickly that me and my dad are in 2 different places in our life. Right. Like he was in retirement mode. I was in let's take over the world mode. Took me a couple years to make that distinction. And I realized, oh, this partnership is not going to work. It's either going to fall apart and I'm going to lose the relationship with my father, or I'm going to politely and professionally give him an ultimatum and buy him out by forcing him out. But I knew that the outcome was going to be better either way. And shop fix actually helped with that quite a bit.
Okay.
Hmm.
Tell us about that.
Okay. So bought a shop in October, actually almost, 7 years and one month ago. Bought the shop October 1st.
You bought business or business and real estate?
Just the business.
Okay.
And then and he had bought the real estate like 5 months prior. So he's now the landlord.
Who is he?
The previous business owner.
Okay.
Yeah,
The previous business owner. So it was an active business you bought.
Yes. Active running business.
Okay. General repair?
Yep. General repair. He should have called it Japanese auto repair kind of thing because that's what he knew, but he ended up calling it import car doctors. Over the years, we kind of turned into the Euro place because nobody else would work on them, and we just kept saying yes to that. But active running shop, the first year they did about, I think it was $375,000. Yeah, it's kind of funny how the deal worked out. So we went to the bank that the business owner used as his primary bank, met with the president or something of that bank, is a smaller bank, and it basically said no, and rightfully so. Like, there's no reason why he should have loaned us any money. I had zero automotive experience, zero business owning experience. He looked at the numbers a little bit and then basically said no. Went to a different bank. They said yes. We borrowed $150,000 was the purchase price of the business, and then $25,000 for operating capital. My house was the collateral, and he used a vehicle that he absolutely should not have used for that. It was just a line of credit, and I said yes. So we bought it. And then closed on, I think, September 31st and opened October 1st or something like that. And took it over. The previous owner stuck around kind of made himself available to me. You know, he wanted me to stick around for a week, 2 weeks or whatever. And I was young and didn't know what I didn't know, and hung out with him for a couple of days. And I said, all right, I got it. Let me figure this out. And then thank God I found Shop Fix 2 years into my journey instead of like 25 years into my journey.
So 2 years in, what was your revenue? Average monthly?
Well, so year one, which we were only in charge for the last 2 or 3 months of the year, so I can't really claim it. That was about 375. Second year, I think we did 480. Third year, I think we did 6 something. So mid 19, we found Shop Fix. Then we went 780, 1.1, 16, 2 something. And then this year, we're same store tracking 3.2 million. So we've 10x'd it.
Little bit of growth.
Yeah, a little bit.
A smidge.
Yeah.
Smidge.
And
How many bays? How many people are in the shop?
So when we bought the shop, it was an old precision tune. So it wasn't set up to have lifts and stuff like that. I think that's what it was, precision tune. Well, anyway, so it was a 5 bay, but I think they had 2 or 3 lifts.
Okay.
And then as soon as I started learning the Shop Fix, procedures, I realized I don't do flat bays. I don't do open bays. And so we started adding lifts. They had a pit. We closed that off immediately. So for a while, it was basically 4 2-posts and a drive on. August of 23, we took a loan out and did an expansion on the building, which allowed us to add 4. We added 3 lifts, but the way we moved it around, we added 3 bays, ended up adding 4 lifts. So now it's a 9 lift shop.
Okay.
And that was just August of last year.
So that first 2 years, how many techs did you have when you bought it from me?
2.
2.
I was the youngest person in the building by 11 years.
How was that?
Awkward. Yeah, awkward. Telling a man who's been fixing cars longer than I've been alive, I realized, I have to tell him what to do and how to do it and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's a steep curve.
Yeah. So we had one advisor, if you want to call her that at the time, one advisor and 2 techs.
So what was that first 2 years like?
Before Shop Fix?
Yeah. You didn't know what you didn't know.
I didn't know what I didn't know. Looking back on it, I think it was very fun. I think I had too much confidence. Not that I was going to kill it or whatever, but I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm really glad of the ignorance I had at the time, because otherwise I probably would have avoided it or had too many preconceived notions. I thought a lot of my aviation knowledge would transfer over. It didn't whatsoever. Some of the maintenance management and flows of stuff helped a little bit, but we started making changes immediately. Well, not changes, I started seeing growth immediately just from common sense stuff. And then once I started learning the numbers, that's when once I started learning the Shop Fix procedures, that's when we really took off. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I will say this though. So once I realized that it took a couple years, but once I started realizing gross profit dollars per hour and all the, the nuts and bolts of the business, the biggest problem I saw was me and my father are not business partners. My dad used to run 3 franchise dealerships at a time as the GM. He was amazing at what he did. I grew up in a dealership, but I didn't see any of the business side of it. One of those very hard lessons I learned, what you helped teach me this as well as Tad did, is my dad is an amazing father, amazing GM of 3 dealerships. He is not a small business owner.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was ready and willing to put in the work that took. And once I started seeing that writing on the wall, I go, okay, something's got to change here. Either we need to part ways, or as business owners, as partners, or I basically had to give him an ultimatum. Otherwise, I was going to lose a relationship with my dad and the shop.
Did that work out?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Can you walk us through kind of the personal development side of it? I can't imagine what the net profit difference is between 300,000 in gross sales and 3.2 million as a young single guy, kind of figuring this all out. But I'm sure there were times when you were like, holy cow, I can't believe this happened. And your own unbelief was coming out and shocking yourself at the progress and shocking yourself at the next level and the next level and the next level. And you kept probably just busting those preconceived ideas of what you thought it was supposed to be and doing even better. And to this day, I bet if your parents had any idea what kind of money you're making, they'd be shocked. So I guess my curiosity is, what was the mind game like, kind of fighting through that, knowing you're having to somewhat push some family out so that the business can grow, so that you can ultimately do what you want to do, hit your own goals. I'm just curious if there was guilt and shame about pushing the dad out, and then if there was also a little bit of, I don't deserve this, or I shouldn't be here, or if it was not that at all and you were like, man, this is what I always saw myself as. I always thought I would be successful at this level someday, and I just knew it was a matter of time.
How do I answer that? The guilt of becoming successful to an extent that came later. That's more recent. Being surrounded by my peers in ShopFix or my mentors in ShopFix, and now I'm having dinner next to my peers and sitting next to you in this office. That's where the kind of guilt and the weirdness came in. But
why guilt?
I struggled with guilt for a while. Like, I don't deserve, this, that, or the other, or I feel like an imposter, in the room, kind of sometimes. But once I kind of learned the ShopFix way and started, once my eyes were open to business in general and the real inner workings, I knew that was for me. Like, this is something I can sink my teeth into. Like, I go home and work, right? And that's not always a great thing, but I'm not going home and dreading work. I'm making everything better. Right. I'm diving into the numbers. I'm implementing a new thing I learned, or I can't wait to go to work so I can change this, that, and the other. That's the exciting piece, if that makes sense. Gently guiding my father out of the business, I don't feel bad about that at all, because now he plays golf every day. And I bought him out. I did a valuation on the business based on what I learned here, showed him exactly why I came up with this number. Here's the debt we have. Here's the revenue we're doing. I gave too much of a multiple because it's my dad. I'm being a little more generous. And I said, yeah, here's your buyout. I'm going to pay you this much money to get out of the way. And so you can just go retire. You deserve to retire. He was 70 at the time, or 72 at the time.
Oh, so he wasn't like 55.
No.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, the dealership that I bought into, once I started learning the numbers, I go, this is not sustainable. We are losing money.
Yeah.
And I actually bought into it again to kind of save us. And then once I learned GP per hour, or once I explained GP per hour to my dad, then he started really, and I had to write it down in a well-worded, professional, but also to my father email that basically said, here's what I'm offering you. And I hope you accept it. And if you don't, I'm going to give you my half of everything. And then I'm going to go down the road and start a shop. And where do you think the employees are going to go? And you're going to be stuck with the lease, and you're going to be stuck with the business you don't know how to run. Or you can take your $0 investment and turn it into, hundreds of thousands of dollars and count it as a win. And then I get to save the relationship with me and my father. You know what I mean? I've always had a great relationship with my parents. They treated me great, but I could see if something doesn't change, I'm going to lose that. And I wasn't willing to do that.
So you were hard up front to save it on the backside.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, the words weren't working. And so I had to put it into writing into a way that I knew that it would get in his face and say, this is your way out. You know what I mean? Like, go retire. And here's a bunch of money that he was in the right place at the right time. I split everything down the middle. And
So you bought half the car lot too?
no, I shut that down.
So you did, but you bought all of the car lot.
Oh no, I bought into the used car dealership. I bought into it.
And then shut it down.
We were owner half and half. And then he ran the shop, or he ran the dealership. I ran the shop. And once I learned GP per hour, and I learned we were losing $30 to $45 per billable hour every time we worked on our own car. I said, well, let's give it back. Give all of the dealer cars back to the guy down the road that was our buddy that was giving us the same deal. You know what I mean? I'd rather make, 170, 180 GP dollars per hour on customers' cars than working on our own cars and losing money.
Yep.
Yeah. We had a terrible deal with ourselves. Once I kind of explained that, he started seeing, he goes, oh, okay, maybe this is not the right move.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors. There's that moment after every job where you hand the customer the keys and they extend their hand for that handshake for a job well done. There's just nothing better than that. But those interactions don't happen if you don't reach out first. Upswell specializes in outreach for repair shops. At Upswell, you get a dedicated marketing consultant skilled in auto repair strategies to help you identify your ideal customer and create a campaign that hits the mark with perfect targeting, eye-catching design, and a compelling message to fuel your growth and get you more of those handshakes. Upswell handles it all. They even offer a free marketing assessment and 10% off your first campaign for all new customers. Get more customer handshakes, get more customers in the door, and get yourself an upswell of new business. Visit them online at upswellmarketing.com. Again, that's upswellmarketing.com. And now back to the episode.
Can you tell everybody what kind of cars were we talking, like
10 to 15-year-old cars.
$10,000 cars?
Yeah. It wasn't
nothing
a buy
crazy
here,
expensive.
No, it wasn't a buy here, pay here. Wasn't it was mostly subprime lending because that was the type of customers we'd get. And then, he would send the cars to us to get oil changes or whatever. But then, you buy a 10-year-old 7 Series for $10,000. They forget they're driving a $120,000 car. And then they don't understand why they need brakes and why it's not free. And it's like,
Not cheap either.
no, not at all, because they don't
No.
understand what they bought. They bought a car for status.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't mean the parts are any cheaper. It's 120.
It's German engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and that wasn't good too, or either. So they bought a car they couldn't afford to maintain.
Yeah.
And then, we would send them to our own shop. And then they started looking negatively on the shop as if they bought a lifetime warranty on a
And
used
they
car.
probably felt like it was a bit of bait and switch.
Probably. I assume so. Yeah. So
Yeah, a used car lot on those types of cars, in my opinion, can only make money once it's been in business so long that customers are willing, who got a good car from you, to come back and buy another good car from you at a profit.
right.
But it has to be lots of return customers. If it's only new customers, it's a race to the bottom.
Right.
And you have to be that slimy guy who sells a car that has issues, and you have to tell them it won't have any issues when that is not true.
Yeah. And that's a good point. My dad is not a slimy used car salesman.
And that's probably why he didn't make money at it.
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all used car salesmen are bad.
Right.
I hope everybody hears that. But it is a definite challenge if you've got a conscience. And I'm not saying they're trying to sell bad cars. It's just, yeah, it needs brakes soon. Yeah, it has a water pump starting to leak, but it's fine for now. We got to sell it because we have no margin in this car.
Right.
That's kind of the argument. But when they end up selling that car and it finally does move, if they go ahead and fix everything on that car, they will not make any money. They will lose money on that car.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no way. The way they make their money is on the financing side. And so because of that ongoing issue there, you have to get cars bought from customers, trade-ins really, really good prices, not having to buy from the auction, quality good cars that are trade-ins that don't need a lot of work, etc. And then the same customer base coming back over and over that trusts you, and they're willing to pay you $1,500 more for a car than somebody else because the last one they got didn't have issues.
Right.
But if you're selling to just the regular Joe Blow in the street, they want a smoking deal. They want the best deal out of all of them. They want your car and the best deal.
Right.
And there is no used car that's the same car. There's new cars that are the same, but not used cars.
Right.
And the crazy part is at the auction, they tell you this all the time, but not every car at the auction is a bad car.
Right.
But every bad car is at the auction.
Okay. There you go. Yeah.
And so it's the luck of the draw, man. I mean, you're just sitting here going, I don't know. So it's interesting that you figured that out kind of in your own way and came to those conclusions. Did your dad really get hung up on the shop being, or not the shop, but the car lot being closed down?
No, I mean, I think he did a little bit. The used car dealership, that supported my mom and dad just fine. When I came on board, though, I have much bigger goals, and it wasn't going to support mom and dad and me.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of his identity to an extent, you know?
Yeah.
He'd been in automotive for 45, 50 years, mostly new car sales in Florida. He was amazing at that. And then the dealership, you know, it was an easy gig for him at his age, if that makes sense. And then I came on board and I'm like, let's take everything to, 11, and learned real quick that used car sales is not the way to go. I don't want anything to do with it. We're cutting ourselves, too good of a deal. And then when you look at, the numbers, the profitability of it, we were losing money every time we worked on our own cars. And once I explained that to him, he started understanding it. So I shut down the dealership, and then I politely, but professionally explained to him, like, hey, we can't be partners on this shop because I'm trying to take it in this direction and you're trying to just hang out. And he was holding me back, and I didn't want to lose that relationship. It wasn't worth losing that relationship with my dad.
Yeah. That's good. What about the car lot? Did you have a lease on that?
We were just renting the space.
Like a month to month?
It may have been a couple years. I don't know. I think we finished it up. I think we just finished out the lease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Now that you've gone through quite a bit of change, tons of expansion, tons of growth, how big's your team now?
Well, we bought store 2. We closed on that January 1st of this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So now you have 2 stores.
Correct.
Where's the next store?
About 10 minutes away.
Oh.
Same town. Kind of funny story on that. There's a guy in town who called me one day. I kind of knew who he was. I didn't really know him. Called me one day and he goes, hey, you into the shop fix thing? You know anything about that? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I know all about that. He's like, you want to go get coffee? I go, yeah, absolutely. And so I went and got coffee, and I remember I was sitting there and I was just, dude, you got to do it. It's this, it'll change your life, this, that, and the other. And, he was kind of relaxed, and I think he thought I was secretly getting paid by Aaron or something on the side, just because it was just easy to sell the vision of Shop Fix for me, especially at the time. And then that was that. And then I go, what did I just do? I just stepped my own competition up. You know what I mean? Yeah. And actually, as a matter of fact, he did end up joining. And I texted Dave Markert, a mentor of mine, and I said, hey, man, I think I just talked my competition into joining Shop Fix and
leveling up the field.
And leveling up. I go, did I just screw myself here?
Yeah.
And Dave gave me a little perspective the way that Dave does. He goes, hey, I have 9 shops within an eighth of a mile of my big shop on the same road. I think he said 7 of them are Shop Fix shops and 5 of them are my clients. And basically what Dave told me was, shut your mouth, get to work. You have nothing to worry about. There's enough cars to go around.
There's a lot of business out there.
Yeah. And
well, now you're competing on service and not price.
Well, now I don't compete with them at all because I bought them.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I never did say that. Sorry about that. You lost a client there in January 1st. But
that must have been why I saw that little tick down.
Yeah. But
so you talked him into joining Shop Fix.
Yeah, talked him. And he was in it for I think 2 years. And talked him into joining the same SMS that we used at the time, which we still use. And then a couple years went by, and we had talked here and there. I think he called me about, hey, do you have a lift guy? I got a lift broken, or a floor guy, or your equipment, something. And every once in a while, I'd joke with him like, hey, you ready to sell me your shop? And he'd be like, I don't know, just whatever. And then actually, I was driving here one time for some event, and he asked me about, I think a previous technician of mine, I think applied at him, and he goes, "Hey, do you know this guy?" I go, "Yeah, I know him, and I'll tell you about him or whatever." I go, "Ready to sell me your shop?" He's joking. He goes, "Hey, let's go grab coffee." And I said, "Okay." And then that was, I want to say October-ish of last year. And then fast forward, we closed on 1 January.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
that
pretty
was, I had like 4 or 5 deals that I was looking at. I did not see that one coming, but traffic count was right. 100% owner finance. So that worked out well. There was already an existing running shop doing better than the one that I had bought previously.
What kind of numbers was this one doing?
Realistically, probably $750 a year. He was nice and very trusting and gave me access to his shop management software through his username and password. So I could see the numbers. Didn't 100% trust the numbers, but I got a idea of, car count, revenue, ARO, the numbers that I needed.
What was his main mistake? He was in shop fix. He was only doing 750.
Mm-hmm.
Why was he not getting above that?
He took his eye off the ball. He had another company. He had a towing company. And I think that's really where his heart was. He had a manager and an advisor, I think 3 techs or two or 3 techs. I think it was just a lot. And, I think he spread his focus out too wide. I think he had two businesses, a shop, a tow company. I think he had like a couple hobby things that were turning into businesses. And I don't think he focused on any one, didn't go deep enough into one. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You generated a relationship with your competition. So it sounds like you guys were talking.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of times that doesn't happen because they fear the competition or fear the other shop that's in the town or whatever. But
right.
So it's great you guys were able to do that and work off each other and prep a store for you to buy later on that probably would have been in worse shape had you not.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Well, you walk into that store, you wouldn't have known he was in shop fix at all. The only reason that I knew it is because I didn't know if he had left or not. I think I saw him at one Hackers, but you could have walked all the way through that shop in and out and wouldn't have known he was in shop fix. There was no indication. Yeah. There was a board, which is a piece of sheet metal in the back office.
Sheet metal.
But hey, it works. Thinking outside the box and get something going, right?
Yeah.
But
car hood.
Yeah, there you go. And it had magnets on it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, they have a board, but it's in the back office. It's not a usable spot. And I was looking at the RO numbers on the magnet, and then I went and looked at his SMS, and those ROs were a year old. So nobody used it. Nobody
went
knew
away from it.
Nobody knew what it was. The only reason I even remembered he was in shop fix was there was a sales fix graduation certificate on one of the walls for his manager.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, you're in sales fix. And then of course I inherited those employees and was super stoked that I'm like, oh, okay. So at least I got a manager who's been through sales fix, been to Hackers or one of the meetings at least once.
Mm-hmm.
And he was easy to talk to. I'm like, okay, cool.
Not completely fresh.
Right. I got somebody there.
So you sowed seeds into your future purchase.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
Came back.
It's kind of weird how that worked out like that.
It is funny how, you go and you take care of somebody else and ends up taking care of you in the long run.
Yeah. That seems to be a trend that I'm seeing.
It is. And it's interesting how society would tell you to be greedy and to tell you this is the only way it can work. But in reality, we all create our own success. If you do a better operation, you will have higher average tickets, and they will bring their car to you more often, and they will bring you every car in the driveway. If you run a poor operation, you'll be lucky if you get one car, and you will have lower average tickets.
Right.
So in a piss poor operation, you have to fight more with competition. In a good operation, you actually don't have to have as much focus on the competition as you normally would. Because your operation does such a good job, you're actually extracting more value out of your current customers than you did before.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I don't really look at the competition in the town anymore. I used to kind of look at that, and then the further along I got in the shop fix journey, and the more that I grew personally, I don't even know what the other ones are doing. I know what the ones that are doing that I'm looking at trying to purchase later, but other than that, I'm not worried about it. I'm just trying to get better than we were yesterday. And that's proven to work so far. So
what's interesting is I've known you for a while, but I never realized you were this aggressive. And it's kind of cool seeing this side of you.
Aggressive as in growth?
All of it. You're like, I'm coming in there and I'm on 11.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just funny hearing that side of it from you.
Yeah, looking back on it, I probably would be further along if I had acted if I took action faster.
Yes, that's what it all is.
I'm constant overthinker. I know the numbers inside and out. I used to tell myself I wasn't a numbers guy, but I love the P&L. That is what I really took to. And, I've been telling my tribe that I've been making decisions as if I own 5 stores for the last 2.5, 3 years, right? Like they need to be sustainable decisions. That's actually our third core value, sustainability. And finally took action on it. It was scary. And then at this point, I realized, some action is better than no action. So if I buy store 3, the goal was to close store 2 by the end of last year. I missed the goal by about 7 hours. So we closed technically on,
Man.
I mean, I was watching the ball drop on my couch and I'm like, I docu-signed my part like 2 hours ago. I'm like, bro, you going to sign this or not? Not that it mattered if I closed on December 31st or January 1st, because it's a close day anyway, but I just wanted to hit my goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So whatever, we signed it on January 1st and then we walked into the store day, January 2nd. So I'll take that as a win. And then the other goal was to close 3 by the end of this year. And then, you don't know what you don't know, and you effectively doubled your business only once. And so now it's almost November. And I think that'd be a bit arrogant to try to close 3 right now, 6 months, whenever it comes along and it's the right deal at the right time, and I'll jump on it. So one of the biggest changes for me, and personal growth really is the biggest growth that I've had, right? If you have personal growth, you're going to have the business growth. The money will follow, the business will follow. But some action is better than no action. And if I take action and it fails and that was a mistake, I'm going to learn something from it. So I'm not really afraid of that anymore, if that makes sense. I'm not afraid of failing. And I think, we talk about in Shop Fix, I think a lot of people are more afraid of success than they are failure. Like, what happens if I do this and it works? Then what do I do?
Yeah.
What is my identity at that point? And I think I dealt with that a little bit for a while, and now I'm going to take some action, right or wrong. I'm going to take some action, because otherwise I'm just going to sit here and talk about it and not grow.
It's really good. A lot, we were just talking about lately. I was talking with someone about outcomes and the way we project what's a failure, what's success on the outcomes versus the process. Because a lot of times, just because the outcome wasn't a good outcome doesn't mean the decision process wasn't the right thing, or that you take away and learn from the things that you made during that time of the decision, So it's interesting. But going back to your core beliefs, you said that was number 3, sustainability. What are the others?
The core values of our business?
Yeah.
So integrity first. Of course, you put me on the spot. Now I'm
sorry.
All right. Integrity first, quality in everything we do, and sustainability through teamwork and commitment. And I just break it down to the first words because it's easier.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
How has that been for your team? When did you align on those 3? Was that recent or was that early on?
No, that was a while ago. Honestly, that was a hard one because I think they've always been there. And I think, again, I overthought it at the time. And I'm like, trying to, how can I say this to get their buy-in or whatever? Again, just overthinking it.
Yeah. And
I'm like, well, what matters to me? What are my non-negotiables? Right? Integrity is non-negotiable for me. Quality, if we don't do everything well, then we have no product to sell. There's nothing for us to give to the community. And then sustainability is more, well, I'm not in it for the short run. I'm not in it for the short money grab. I want to create a long-term sustainable business that I'll either exit or I will pass on to my employees, or maybe my daughter grows up and decides she wants something to do with this. So every decision that is made by myself or my team, I want them to think about, is this a sustainable decision? It's kind of like you say, the polishing the trash can when you walk into the whatever location, right? That is, you are the culture that you've set. When you're not there, they're not going to forget that, right? So it's almost like a hologram of you in the corner. Like when you told us that story, that's what I envisioned. I'm like, how do you project Aaron throughout this shop that you might not have, probably haven't walked in 7 months, right? And it's, so if my team is making a decision, which they're both at home right now making decisions all day, I want them to think about that. Is this a sustainable decision? And then of course, quality is, fix the car right the first time. And if you don't, take care of the customer. That's all there is to it. And of course, integrity is integrity. I have no room for anything less than that.
So this second store, how have you done turning that store around? And what challenges came with it?
So month 3 of ownership, March, we beat that store has been around. That store had been that business since 1988. So right there at the end, I had to make a decision, and I waited too long. Do I rebrand and lean on what we've created, or is it's right on the cusp of it being pretty close? It's about 3.5 miles, about 10 minutes driving, and I'm like, well, this store's it's been around since '88. It's got to hold weight in the town. So my intention at the time was I'm going to leave it the same name, just give it a facelift, new logo, paint the building, maybe project new ownership, new services or something. And then right at the last minute, I realized, my realtor didn't know it was an auto shop, let alone the name of it. And his job is to drive around town knowing every building in the town. And then my techs didn't even know it was a shop. Half of my techs. I'm like, well, if my techs don't know it's a shop.
Did it have a weird name?
No, not weird. It was a person's name.
But why would they not think it was a shop?
They just didn't know about it. They did market, but it was kind of a hodgepodge marketing. The name was even, one said auto repair, one said automotive, one said tire and auto.
It wasn't an established brand.
Yeah, there was the standardization was all over the place. Yeah. So once I realized that, I go, oh, we do need to lean into what we've created and just rebrand. Don't worry about, cannibalizing one or the other. Is it too far, too close kind of thing. So I waited too long, but at the last minute I said, nope, we're going to rebrand it identically, just another location. One of the things I learned is the team that they had in place, the previous owner did not realize the team that he had. I got kind of lucky on that. I was prepared for them all to walk out day one because I listened. I was prepared for that. It was going to suck, but I was ready for that to happen. They didn't.
It didn't suck.
No, they didn't walk out.
Oh, they didn't walk out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Couple of the issues I didn't see coming or challenges was to back up and the answer to the other part. Month 3, so March. No, actually, I think February we beat their all-time record of that business.
Wow, in February.
Yeah, in revenue. And I actually walked in day 1 with the board under my arm. Right. So I'm like, it went up on the wall day 1, and they took to that real quick because I think they didn't have a whole lot of structure whatsoever. So that
nothing was centralized.
Right. So that was easy for them to pick up. And I think I just had to sell myself, day 1. So they realize I'm not A, a weirdo, B, a big corporate. So I had to sell the vision hard so that they didn't just up and leave.
Yeah.
Come to find out later when I got to know, the techs better, they all had one foot out the door, and I don't blame them. Like it couldn't really have been a more dire situation from a tech standpoint. I'm surprised they stuck around as long as they did. They were paid. The techs are flat rate. So, okay, that's already a win. They're already on TechMetric. We use TechMetric. That was already a win. They didn't write their own estimates, but they were familiar enough to do so. That was a win. There was even the manager had the right pay plan, base salary plus a percentage of commission on GP dollars of the whole team. I'm like, wow, this is going to be easy. And then there was one individual who was a 30-year master tech sitting up front in a chair. They had no cars, or not nearly enough. And I'm like, that is a waste of talent. And so I had to talk with him, and I said, this is unsustainable. Why were you doing it? He goes, hey, that's what the previous owner wanted me to do. I said, okay, that's fair. So converted him into flat rate tech pretty quickly.
What was he doing up there?
Helping sell. And, they weren't saying yes, they were saying no. And so long story short, the front of house, if you will, got replaced all within 30 days. And then some good timing, a previous advisor we had moved away, moved out of town, moved back into town, texted me. I said, hey, swing by on Saturday, and hired him on the spot. But we'd already had a good...
You knew him?
Yeah, I knew him. He's no longer with us, but that was a temporary solution. Helped him out, helped us out, and we started growing. And then March we did 147 in March, 3rd month in.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was 420 between the 2 stores. And funny story is March, I'm like, I got this figured out. I'm awesome. I'm a badass. and the humbling began April 1st. And I'm glad I got that out of the way quickly because the humbling is still going on. And at Hackers, Mike Tafato said something on stage I wish I had heard about 4 years ago. And he said, your first, second store, you're going to suck. because you only do it once and
Yeah.
you're going to suck. And I think you said it like 15 times. I go, man, if you just said that 3 years ago, or if I was in a position to receive that 3 years ago,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have felt so bad about it sucking.
Yeah.
Because I did not expect January, February, March to just go up, up, and up and up. And then April, the humbling began, and then we're pulling out of it now. So
Nice.
yeah,
You don't know what you don't know.
exactly. Yeah. So
Those lessons are hard ones to learn, but
yeah,
yeah.
I made one pretty critical error that I knew better and still ignored it. So I like to say one of my gifts that I have is I can learn from others' mistakes, right? I love Ryan Blair's story. That was my first hackers event, by the
Yep.
way. So I'm like, you know what? He lost $1 million, or it was $1 million upside down, whatever it was. I go, he did that for me, so I don't have to go through that, right? You shared all your stories, all your wins and losses. So I know what to avoid there. And then one of the biggest things that I've asked you and everybody else, what do I need to know? What do I not do going into store 2? Do not pull your foundational pieces out of store 1 to start store 2, right?
Correct.
And so 6 months in, I go, holy crap, I did it. Haven't pulled a single person from store 1, and it's working. I mean, it's a mess, but it's working. Then mid-June, I went ahead and pulled an advisor out of store 1 to be the manager of store 2. And I expected store 1 to dip, and it did. And that was a mistake, I think. And so just 2 weeks ago, we swapped back. And so he's back at store 1. And then I put a new manager in place at store 2. Not that he failed as a manager, but I failed to give him the support he needed.
Right.
And of course, I reduced the front of house capacity at store 1. I did not plan on replacing him. I planned on getting leaner with our systems and better. And it worked. And the P&L looked great. Even with the dip in revenue, the net went up. But the front of house then became the bottleneck. Techs were ready to go in the front in store 1. So that was a mistake. And that I knew better, still asked, still did it. I waited 6 months, but I was prepping him to be manager of number 2 for a year or so.
Yeah.
Will you ever give him another shot?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
But not without giving him more support first. Like I failed to build him up.
Yeah.
I just figured, I don't know what was in me. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just put him in that seat, and then I can relax and go do what I need to do, because he already knows our systems, procedures, everything. Yeah. And there was some leadership pieces that I failed to help him with.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So 2 store, like you said, you're subtle aggressive.
Yeah. I wish I was more aggressive.
I think you are. I think that you're wishing to be more aggressive. You are aggressive, but I'm curious as we kind of wrap, where do you see things going? Like, where do you want this to go? Yeah. You're talking about store number 3 you're already talking about.
Correct. I'd say 3 minimum. I think 5 is where I want to go. I want to get to 3 first, get it rocking, and then I'll reevaluate. But I think, or maybe this is just ignorance talking, I think once I get to 3, I think 4, 5, 6, and 7 will happen a lot faster. But I want to help too. I want to coach. I've been talking to Tad, who's been the biggest gift I think ShopFix or anything else could have given me over the last 7 years.
He's a great coach.
Oh,
Tad's awesome. Good friend.
I wouldn't be where I'm at without him, and you as well.
No, seriously, Tad's a great guy.
Oh yeah. But I'd say 5 is probably the goal.
Yeah.
But once I get to 3 and 4, my goals will probably change.
Yeah.
And I'll reevaluate it.
You'll have a new 11.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Jason, thanks so much for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man.